Hello and welcome to part 2 of this Respect for Rodimus video. So in part 1 I talked briefly about my history with the character, and also some history of the character, and we took a look at the alt modes for all of these figures and my thoughts on each of them. And in this video, we're just gonna go over the robot modes for each. So the cool thing about Rodimus is that for the most part his look has been consistent. I say for the most part because, aside from like the interpretation of the Michael Bay version, why? For the most part, every HotRod has had this orange, red and orange, with the flames and everything. So the look has been consistent for the character, which has been cool. But I think the thing that speaks most truly about this character is that even though that we haven't seen much of him as far as in the big like media for the Transformers, he's not. I would say that Bumblebee took the rightful spot of Rodimus Prime, in my opinion. Bumblebee was pretty much, I would say, the Bumblebee that you see in the Michael Bay movies is pretty much something that I would say you could have given to Rodimus Prime and his character growth over the movies. And you could say that in the end, you could see him in like the Last Night movie. You could probably see the passing of the torch of Optimus to Rodimus. But for some reason or another, Michael Bay chose to give Bumblebee a prominent role in those movies, and thanks to that, Bumblebee has shot up in popularity, pretty much becoming, the face of the property, so to speak. When you think of Transformers, you think of Optimus and Bumblebee now, right? Whereas before, you probably used to think Optimus and Megatron and the Starscream and all of that, Soundwave, but Bumblebee was not really, someone that you would have thought would take such a big role in the franchise. So to me, Bumblebee took over what should have been HotRod / Rodimus Prime's spotlight, right? And in subsequent media that has come since then, HotRod has been given some spotlight. The Cyberburst cartoon, you had a version of HotRod that was a mix of G1, right? And I would say that interpretation of the character was pretty fair. But again, he wasn't, Rodimus Prime. So yeah, I think going forward, I would like to see Rodimus Prime take a more prominent role in the franchise. We've got more movies coming out. Maybe they will do a continuation of the War for Cybertron cartoon series on Netflix. And hopefully we will see Rodimus Prime featured. So anyway, let's get on with this review for the figures that I have. I'm just gonna pause a little bit and position the camera, and we'll be right back. Alright, so first up, we're gonna take a look, just like we started in the previous video. We're gonna start with the classics, HotRod / Rodimus. Now, when I got this figure, when I first saw this figure, I thought he was really cool. I thought he was a nice update of the HotRod character. That you could, if this figure was bigger, you know, something like this guy or this guy, this version right here could have been a nice interpretation of a Rodimus Prime, because he's got bulk, he's got chunk to him, right? He's not slim like HotRod is usually represented as. What I really like is these tall shoulders on him, right? The face sculpt is pretty cool, you know. I think they did a good job on it. And overall, the detail on the figure is pretty cool. Some touch-ups that I did on the figure, I repainted the gun. This entire gunmetal part is it was repainted. It was just gray plastic. I actually, now for those eagle-eyed viewers are noticing, I have the gun backwards. Usually the gun is like this, but I don't like how it looks, so I have it like this, facing backwards, with this end pointing forward. Right. Also, you know, let's see, I painted some detail there on his thighs, some silver detail, the inside portion of the legs, I painted in black. This entire area here was painted, I'm trying to remember, was it painted black? I believe so, or some sort of dark color. I forget what color it was. But I removed all of that paint and just kept the paint on this detail here on the triangle portion, right? And then I on the backpack portion, on which is the canopy part of the car mode, all of that I painted. I unscrewed it and removed it and painted underneath all of that in gunmetal with some silver highlights. Can't really see it here on camera, or maybe you can. Now the cool thing is, when you remove the top portion of this mold, when you separate it, there are actual molded seats underneath on the inside. So if this were transparent instead of painted plastic, you can actually see some molded seats underneath. So yeah, this figure, if it had been, you know, KO'd and oversized to a decent, you know, Voyager sized version, it would have been a cool Rodimus Prime figure stand-in. The only thing that I don't like is these these extensions coming down from the forearm. Again, I know for the gimmick, right? Because he's got this. I believe that's like a saw, and then on this side he has nothing. But it would have been cool if you know, this were to have been flipped over. You can also cover up the gap there. All right. So as it is, you know, it's kind of off-putting. But overall, the figure is pretty cool, and I like it. Oh, also the feet I painted in gunmetal. So there's this guy. From there, I got the Power of the Primes version, which I've already spoken in his own video. Just a few things that I probably didn't mention in that one that I'll bring up here. The gun is from the Thrilling 30 Blur, which is like the IDW version of Blur, and that Blur had like a sniper rifle, which is this one, and I mean, it's not really a gun that I associate with Blur, so I decided to give this to a Rodimus, because Rodimus has the big gun, right, which we'll see later. And since I got this figure I only got this figure. I never got the trailer portion for the Power of the Primes, because I didn't really want to. So I got this figure online on eBay. So I only got this solo figure, right? Because I wanted them to be by Rodimus Prime for the time being. Again, just some minor touch-ups on this guy, on the face, on the chin, some darker maroon color here on his waist, some red wash on the thighs to bring out some of that detail. Some of the things that I think people mostly complain about with this guy is his proportions, which in actuality aren't that bad, except for the cheap wrist exhaust pipes. I mean, I think they could have done way better than these flimsy little things that they gave them. And also, it's just because of the panel underneath the fists and the way these are extended outwards, it kind of gives them weird long arms, even though if you just look at the fists and where they are and where they lie as a whole, about mid-thigh, the proportions are actually correct. It's just like the whole piece here is throwing your side off and making him look like he's got like long monkey arms. And I'll just give you one example here. So I removed the pipes from one side, right? And if I can just blend it in with the rest of the figures in the back, and you just try and focus on his fist, right? And if you look at his fist, you can see that it's actually pretty well proportioned. So if they had just removed that panel from underneath the fist, which I actually tried to, trying to find a way how to make it fold backwards, right? Doing some modification. And that way I can just get the fist to look, like normal, and then have some other type of pipes created, exhaust pipes for the arms, and instead of these things, I have thought of, because I believe that's one of the things that brings this figure, well, there are other things that brings this figure down. I mean, he has no waist, right? And you got the back of the canopy, bumping into this part of the plastic right here, so you can't go a lot of backwards, So just some things that they could have done better to improve this figure. One of the things that I actually contemplated was getting the Titan Return figure, because his arms actually look better. So I was thinking of maybe trying a swap, but I've never got around to doing it. I've never got the figure, so that's step one. Because I believe you can just replace them, because these are just ball jointed on the right there. although it would just be a matter of what size ball joints the Titan's Return figures are. If not, it would probably be like replacing the entire system right here, the shoulder swivel. So for the time this figure served this purpose, he was my Rodimus Prime for many years. That is until then I got this figure in the back, the Fans Toys Hoodlum. So again, Hoodlum was released as a HotRod, but he was also he was also promoted in that you could use him as a Rodimus Prime, because he came with an alternate face, which is this one right here, which is the Rodimus Prime face. And size-wise, as you saw, he was a lot taller than the Kingdom Rodimus. That's because this guy, like I said in the previous video, he is a masterpiece figure, right? But he was scaled in that if you wanted a Rodimus Prime, he could scale with the KO of the MP10 Optimus Prime, and Optimus, which is like a 7 1/4 inch figure. So this is this guy, and you could use this guy in your standard Hasbro collection as your stand-in Rodimus Prime, because at the time Hasbro had not put out like a Voyager scaled Rodimus, except for like the Power of the Primes version, but he was in a leader class, and the leader class was a much bigger toy. So Fans Toys were promoting this figure that you could use him as a stand-in Rodimus. So that's why they gave him the second face, which is this one, and he was scaled to a size where you could use him along with the MP10 V, right, which is the KO, and to have him as in your collection, in your Hasbro Generations collection as a Rodimus Prime. And this figure also is not without its controversy when it was released. A lot of people, like I said, I'm not a masterpiece collector. This is just the second masterpiece figure that I own. I don't own any other. Like I said, it was just this and the MP10 V. But a lot of people were complaining about his engineering, well, one of the things that they complained about was the shoulders were too high for a HotRod. That the shoulders were too high. Although there is a way that you can manipulate the mechanism, the hinge in the shoulders, that you can drop him down, but that would mean disconnecting the shoulders and not having them set right on the inside, so they would be all floppy. But you can drop the shoulders a little bit, because the high shoulders were something that was more Rodimus than HotRod. And also a lot of controversy with regards to like the neck. You can see that the neck is separated there at the collar. There's this gap right there. And I concur, it does look a little ugly. I don't know why they made that like they did. Right? And then there was also the issue with the head itself as far as range. The figure couldn't really look up on its own. There was no real range, so a lot of us took to modifying the toy. I actually ended up modifying the back of the helmet to a steeper angle so that it would allow him to look up, right? It was just a simple, shaving of the back with sandpaper. But now he can look up, not a lot down. Also, a lot of controversy with this gap right here in the middle. There we go. Right there, you can clearly see through the other end of the figure. Again, the other controversy was you can see that I put some tape there. That's to prevent the paint from continually scraping on the die cast portion here, which is painted on, and also which is what's causing a lot of the paint to flake off on the, like I showed you guys in the other video, on the tip of the alt mode on the hood, that there was some paint scraping off. But yeah, one solution that I came up to fill in this gap right here is when I ordered when I got the Power of the Primes figure, I did get some spare parts on it from the trailer portion of the figure. So I took one of these parts, which is, I believe they were part of the forearms that were part of the front end of the trailer. So I just took one of these parts, modified it and everything, and I used this to cover up that part right here, this entire part that is exposed. So I just flipped this in, if I remember correctly. There we go. And now that entire back part of the figure is filled out. You can no longer see through the figure. There we go. Can no longer see through the entire figure. There is still a little bit of a gap, but I mean, I think this little fix is was kind of cool. All right. I don't think anybody else has done something like this. Even through 3D designers and everything. And yeah, but other than that, the figure itself is pretty cool. Die cast thighs, which are painted. Die cast chest. Although this figure does use faux chest, right? So the actual vehicle chest is this part right here on the inside. So this is a fake hood. So despite all of the controversy, a lot of people did like this figure as far as his look, because he was a little better proportion, well, not proportion, I want to say, as far as looks go, he looked better than the Masterpiece HotRod that came out, right? Also, now I remember, another controversy was like some of the range on the figure, because again, a lot of people were having issues like trying to pose him, because his shoulders weren't really too flexible. I mean, so it's something that every HotRod figure is gonna get because of the high shoulders, right? So it's something that is just part of the character, right? I did repaint his eyes to sky blue. I don't remember what color they were before. I mean, they were a blue, but they weren't this sky blue, right? So I painted those and just gave them a high gloss finish at the end. So yeah, and also repainted part of the helmet, right? I gave it that darker maroon color. So yeah, this figure served its purpose for a few years after I got the power of the primes as my stand-in Rodimus. I can still use him as a Rodimus Prime, of course. I mean, he's not, just because I got the kingdom doesn't mean I'm demoting that guy. I mean, look at his size, right? He still fits the look of a Rodimus Prime. And then let's look, even though I got this guy last, let's look at him next, and we'll look at the kingdom figure lastly. And this guy is pretty much everyone's, as far as Hasbro releases go, everyone's favorite interpretation of HotRod. Again, not without its imperfections, right? I already showed you some because of this yellow plastic on the canopy, on the knees, even there on the hip joints, right? A lot of people are like, why are you using yellow instead of maybe a dark color, or just keep using the orange? But some and of course the major controversy again, right? This is a Voyager priced figure, but he is a deluxe sized, right? You look at him, he's the same size as the classics, right? But as far as the toy itself goes, you know, he's pretty much spot on to the cartoon. Again, he does have the added molded detail on him, so he's not like a one-on-one interpretation of the animation. But the reason this guy was priced so high is, if you're looking closely, he's pretty much a completely solid figure. He has no hollow parts, right? There are no thigh gaps. There are, you know, except for this part right here, is the only part where you can see any like what they call waffling, right? So if this was like capped off, you know, it would be like the only part where you see anything that has like a gap issue. But the thighs are covered up. You got no gaps in the forearms. You know, everything is pretty solid on this guy. Also, for those who have this figure, he does come with a matrix, and although there is no way to store him officially on the figure, you can put it inside the figure. All you gotta do is just put the matrix inside right there. There's enough space that you can flip this down and get enough pressure on there for, you can hear some rattling, but very minimal. So you can give Rodimus Prime the matrix. And then finally we're moving on to the Kingdom figure, the last release. And again, this guy is pretty much the kingdom. The kingdom, like the king, the ideal Rodimus Prime that everyone wanted, updated since the Power of the Primes one. A lot of people were hoping something like this. They got something else, which at the time was okay, but I think many people are happy with Hasbro finally giving us a true updated version of Rodimus Prime. Right, again, a lot of the engineering is close resembling to the HotRod figure, the Studio Series, but he does have some clever engineering of his own. And again, this guy is pretty much rock solid. There is no gapping whatsoever, right? Everything is pretty much covered up, right? Solid. There's a lot of heft to this figure. But the only thing that people didn't really like about this guy was the face. Uh, they say he kind of looks too old for being, for Rodimus, even though Rodimus was supposed to be aged up as he became Rodimus, from HotRod to Rodimus. But many people think that this is maybe a little too much. Some people have gone on to repaint the face just into a flat gray, and that has maybe like tricked the eye into smoothing out the lines, right? And the harder edges of reflectiveness caused by the silver paint. So some people have just repainted the face into a flat gray, similar to this color, right? So, and that seems to have made people a lot happier. I think it's fine, actually. It actually kind of looks like the face that this guy has inside of him when he converts into Rodimus. So the faces are pretty similar. But yeah, I think this is gonna be hard to top, as far as Rodimus Primes go, unless they make another version that is an all-in-one, right, where the cab and the figure all transform into one solid piece of robot. It's gonna be hard to top this guy. So yeah, there it is. That's my collection of Rodimus. Again, hopefully it's a character that we'll see a lot more of in Transformers media. I really do wish the guy got more of his due than he has gotten. I know that in the comics from the IDW comics, he was captain of the Lost Light, and he was pretty much sub commander, so to speak. But in terms of leadership goes, he wasn't really an Autobot leader. Hopefully in future media, like I said, hopefully Rodimus gets his due, because I really do think the character has really not been explored as he should have. I'm sure in the old comics, in the old G1 comics, the character was explored, but a lot of people are more familiar with cartoons and all of that in the movies. So I'm thinking of the wider mainstream exposure, right, for the character. So yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you liked it. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll check you guys out in the next one. Later.